All right, let's dive into this explainer. We're looking at FINRA communication categories, the rulebook to reality. We're going to master FINRA's communication rules by basically turning this incredibly dry, dense rulebook into a reality show. Because honestly, trying to memorize regulatory definitions by just staring at a page is a fast track to falling asleep on your keyboard. We need to deeply learn, retain, and actually apply this stuff for the Series 6 exam, not just vaguely recognize it. So we're going to use some memorable scenarios and a few recurring characters to make sure this sticks in your brain like glue. Now, this explainer is brought to you by CertFuel. They've got a full Series 6 course with adaptive study quizzes, smart flashcards, and unlimited practice exams that are weighted just like the real thing to help you pass with confidence. It's awesome. Check it out at certfuel.com. Okay, let's get into the drama.
Meet our first characters, Rita the rep and her perpetually stressed out boss, Sam the supervisor. So Rita's trying to drum up some business, right? And she accidentally blasts a marketing email to 26 retail customers instead of her intended 25. Did she just trigger a FINRA violation? I want you to actually think about this. Pause the explainer right now, lock in your answer, and then hit play when you're ready.
The answer is an absolute yes. If Rita sends that email to 26 people, Sam the supervisor definitely needs to panic. Why? Well, crossing that magic number changes all the rules. It instantly transforms that email from simple correspondence into a retail communication. And the huge deal here is that retail communications require principal pre-approval, meaning Sam had to review and approve that email before Rita ever clicked send. Since she didn't get that approval, yeah, she just broke the rules.
This setup brilliantly illustrates our baseline. Everything Rita sends falls into one of these three written buckets based entirely on audience size and audience type. You've got retail communication at the top, which goes to more than 25 retail investors. You've got institutional communication in the middle, going only to institutional investors, and then correspondence at the bottom, which is 25 or fewer retail investors. The category drives everything: who approves it, if it gets filed with FINRA, how it's supervised. You really need to memorize these three buckets.
So the crucial threshold here is 25, specifically 25 retail investors. Think of a retail investor as our favorite fictional client, Cora the customer. Cora is just a regular person trying to save for retirement. She's not a bank, she's not a massive hedge fund. If Rita's message goes to 25 Coras, it's correspondence. If it goes to 26 Coras, boom, retail communication. One single person literally changes the entire regulatory burden of that piece of paper or that email.
But wait, it's not just 25 people ever. That 25 count is measured over a rolling 30 calendar day period. This is another massive number you need etched into your memory. It's not a calendar month, like just the month of June. It's any rolling 30-day window. You're basically always looking backwards 30 days from the exact moment Rita clicks send to see how many retail investors have received that specific communication.
Which brings us to a massive exam trap. Watch out for how the test writers try to trick you here. The 25 count rule is not per mailing. The exam loves to test this trap. Let's say Rita sends a market update email to 20 Coras on Monday. That's fine, it's correspondence. But then on Wednesday, she sends the exact same email to 10 different Coras. She might be thinking, hey, 20 is less than 25 and 10 is less than 25, I'm totally good. Wrong. 20 plus 10 is 30 within a 30-day window. Suddenly, Rita is dealing with a retail communication. She didn't get Sam's pre-approval, and she's in a lot of trouble.
Now, what's really interesting is who doesn't count towards that 25-person limit. Enter the institutional investors. These are the heavyweights. We're talking about banks, insurance companies, mutual funds, which are registered investment companies, investment advisors, and big employee benefit plans. FINRA basically assumes these folks are sophisticated enough to take care of themselves. So if Rita sends a prospectus to 500 different banks, does that trigger the 25 count rule? No way, because the 25 count rule only applies to retail investors. Institutions are entirely exempt from that math.
But here is the most testable number for individuals when it comes to institutions: $50 million in total assets. This is the magic threshold where a regular human being transforms into an institution in the eyes of FINRA. And note, it doesn't mean they have $50 million invested with Rita. It means they have $50 million in total assets anywhere in the world. Okay, pause the explainer again. I want to test your reflexes on this one. Let's say our regular, everyday retail client, Cora the customer, suddenly inherits a massive estate, and her total assets cross that $50 million mark. Rita then sends her a complex pitch book via email. How does FINRA classify an email sent to Cora now? Pause, think about it, and let's check the answer. The answer is institutional communication. Because of that $50 million threshold, Cora instantly transforms into an institutional investor. It's kind of like a superhero origin story, but for regulatory compliance. Rita no longer has to count Cora towards her 25-person retail limit. Any direct communication solely with Cora is now treated with the much more relaxed supervision rules of an institutional communication. But beware this massive exam trap. If you take away just one thing about institutional communications, make it this. One single retail investor ruins the institutional status. If Sam the supervisor has reason to believe that even a single regular retail investor will see an institutional piece, let's say Rita emails a pitch to 40 banks, but CCs her Uncle Bob, who has maybe 10 grand to his name, it loses its institutional status entirely. FINRA says if a retail investor sees it, you got to protect the retail investor. The whole thing becomes a retail communication. One drop of retail ruins the institutional bucket. All right, let's shift gears a bit and see how this applies to a completely separate category, public appearances. Up until now, we've talked about written or electronic stuff. Public appearances apply when Rita gets invited to do a live, unscripted TV interview, or maybe she's speaking off the cuff at a seminar or hosting an interactive forum. The key rules here: if she recommends a security, she absolutely must have a reasonable basis for it, and she must disclose any financial interest she has in it. Basically, no secretly pumping up stocks she already owns. But here is the trick FINRA loves to pull on you. Notice how I kept emphasizing the word unscripted? Well, if Rita gets super nervous before her seminar and writes out her entire presentation word for word, and then reads from that prepared script in front of 30 retail investors, that is not a public appearance anymore. The script is a written document. It triggers the 25 count rule and instantly becomes a retail communication, which means Sam the supervisor actually had to pre-approve that script before she read it. So remember, unscripted equals public appearance, scripted equals written communication. And here is another trap to memorize. What happens when Sam emails Rita to complain about her messy desk, or maybe sends a firm-wide memo about a new compliance policy? The exam is going to try to make you categorize this. Do not fall for it. When communications happen internally between a firm's own employees, they're excluded from all three communications rule categories entirely. Internal means invisible to these specific FINRA rules. When you finally sit down for the exam and your brain is buzzing, just use this 3-step mental flowchart to instantly classify any communication they throw at you. Step 1. Is it written or electronic? If no, it's a public appearance. If yes, move to Step 2. Step 2. Is it available only to institutional investors? If yes, it's institutional. If there's even one retail investor, move to Step 3. Step 3. Will more than 25 retail investors receive it within a rolling 30 days? If yes, it's retail. If no, it's correspondence. Take a screenshot of this in your brain. Memorize this sequence. It will absolutely save you points. All right, we're going to lock this all in with a rapid-fire recap. These are the major takeaways you need to be able to recall under pressure. First up, 25 retail investors in 30 rolling days. Remember, the 25 count rule applies to any rolling 30 calendar day period, and if you send multiple mailings of the same piece, they aggregate. Next up in the rapid-fire recap, $50 million in assets equals institutional investor. Anyone with $50 million in total assets, even natural persons like our friend Cora, magically becomes an institutional investor. But remember that trap? If a communication meant for them accidentally gets forwarded to a regular retail investor, the institutional status is totally destroyed. Third rapid-fire recap. Scripted equals retail. Unscripted equals public appearance. A scripted seminar read to more than 25 retail investors is a written retail communication requiring pre-approval. Unscripted, off-the-cuff speaking, is just a public appearance. And the final piece of the rapid-fire recap. Internal comms are entirely excluded. Messages that stay inside the firm, like those frantic emails between Sam and Rita, do not count as correspondence. They don't count as retail. They are totally excluded from this specific rule framework. To wrap up, Rita goes on a live, unscripted TV show and recommends a stock to 10,000 retail viewers. Because she owns shares in her personal account, she absolutely must disclose that conflict of interest right there on air. But here's the thought I want to leave you with. What happens if that unscripted TV interview is recorded and her firm later decides to email the video link to 50 retail clients? Does her TV appearance suddenly become a heavily regulated retail communication? Think about how these categories can cross over in the digital age. Keep studying, trust the structure, and we'll unravel that in the next explainer.